everyone to our Family Dispute Resolution Practice course. I'm Donna Cooper and I'm one of the lecturers and also the coordinator of the course. Probably already got that.
That's all right.
So I've just given you out the information we're going to go through today and the schedule of learning. So just to give you a bit of background about me, I was originally a family lawyer. So I guess I was a QIT student, that's going back a while. And then I did articles at Cooper Grace and Ward, and I ended up, they had quite a good family law firm. The partner I worked for, Leanne Spellican, is now a Federal Circuit Court judge. So I was really lucky at the time that that was about the only area I was interested in law, because in the olden days there weren't any subjects at law school like discrimination or environmental or human rights. There was family law. So I worked as a lawyer for quite a while, and then I went to Legal Aid and I managed their conferencing area for quite a few years. So that's when I really got interested in mediation. So they've got a Queensland-wide service. You probably have a bit of information about that, or maybe you don't, but Legal Aid have what they call Family Dispute Resolution Conferences, and we'll talk about that in Module 1. Then I had children and I ended up going back to Legal Aid for a while, and then I went to Griffith and I got into research in family law and also teaching, and then I ended up at QUT as a teacher, but all along since being at Legal Aid I've kept up being a family mediator, and that's really where my passion has formed, I guess, family law and mediation. So I still mediate for Legal Aid, and I also do private mediations, and now for the last couple of years I've been teaching in mediation because I commenced the law school, which is quite a difficult task, to have run some family mediation and mediation masters of law units that also run as short courses. So now we run family mediation, and also a 2-day course for national mediation assessment. So, and I currently teach in all those mediation units and courses, and also in the undergraduate family law subject. Our family law elective is the largest elective in the law school, and it's got 300 plus students every year. Runs in semester 2 and in summer. So that shows you, I'm still convincing the law school and some of the academics there that family law is actually an important area of the law, and some of them sometimes say people only study it because it's too easy, but I think a lot of people go out, and I do meet students now. Family law is an elective at law school now, and I meet people who have been QUT students at conferences and that sort of thing, and some of them haven't done family law, but they go out into practice, and that's where the work might be. So that's probably why people study it as well, because it's relevant. Okay. Now I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an introduction into how to get into the Blackboard site, and we'll talk about the course. And I also wanted to get a bit of an idea from you people about what you're hoping to learn. So I was hoping too that the course, I know, say with your work, you're probably not just taking calls about family law, but other sorts of issues. But if you have things that are coming up where, you know, you could learn some more information and it's sort of relevant to what we're teaching, we can certainly go into those things as well. Okay, so just initially, if you go into the QUT homepage, you'll come up on a page like that, and our learning materials are on what's called a Blackboard site, and it's like a website for learning. So I don't know how recently people have studied. For me it was so long ago that we didn't even have computers, but if you've studied in more recent times, which I'm sure you people have, you might have worked on Blackboard sites. So for me, and I guess for you too, because you're students, and I don't sort of have your student view, but I'll show you how I get into Blackboard, and then maybe at the end of the session we can get someone to log in so we can check that it's similar for you people. So I go into staff and then I click on Blackboard, and I think it would be similar for you people. And then this comes up at the top with, and these are all the subjects I've got access to, but our subject is down here under My Communities. So there's My Units and then My Communities. So this is where you go in, and you go into here. Okay, so from time to time we send announcements which just really go out in the form of an email to you, and that's why we've suggested, if you want to, that you divert your QUT email, unless you want to specifically check your QUT email, which you might not have time to go on and specifically check that. So today we've got our PowerPoint and information under orientation. We're then going to have online modules. There will be some assessment, but we're hoping to keep that quite manageable. The course materials will have any extra readings that aren't provided in hard copy to you. And then we will have a discussion board. And the idea of that is, as you're working through the modules, if you have any questions, if you could post it on there, that means that when we answer, or when I answer, everyone can see it. So, you know, obviously if you've got any sort of personal issues that you want to email, you don't put it on the discussion board. But if you've got a question about the content, or you're not sure about how something's working, anything that might be relevant to everyone, you could post on the discussion board. Okay, so we'll just go into our orientation module. And in this, and I've probably got it a bit too big, but we've got the teaching schedule, which is what I've just handed out to you. So that's this one. And I've just, on the online one, I've highlighted the in-person days. So that gives you all your dates. Now at the moment we're hoping to get module 1 up by Monday, but we have got a few issues with the audio on it. We've had a bit of problem with the audio and getting the audio of a good enough quality. So it may have to go up on Tuesday, and that's just so that we don't open it up to you and it's not a very good product for you to use. So I hope that's okay. Now I'm just going to open up the, oh, what do I do? Save it. Just going to open up the PowerPoint that we're going to go through. What's it do that for?
I think if you press browse, then you'll be able to select that one.
Oh, okay, so is that down here? Do
Oh
you
no,
know?
it was on the screen.
Oh, right, on the screen I just closed. Okay. Okay. So as I saw, well, I said welcome. Okay. So I just wanted to introduce you to who will be teaching over the course. So there's me, and there's also Jenny Felton, who's been teaching with me for quite a few years in the mediation units. Jenny's actually got a background as a social worker, so she's worked a lot in the family law system, and in the past was a family report writer and also family law social worker. She's now a lecturer in the Faculty of Health, School of Social Work, so she'll be taking some parts of the course. And then we have Chris Turnbull, who is a colleague of mine. He is a sessional staff member in the law school. He teaches with us in family law, and his passion is for financial areas and child support, which is very lucky for me. And Chris currently teaches other units in the law school too. He's teaching in a first year dispute resolution unit and also in a contracts unit, and he's actually doing a PhD, and I'm his supervisor, so I've whipped him into action and got him also involved in this. Okay, so the main aim of the course is develop your knowledge and skills to become an accredited family dispute resolution practitioner. I'm sorry I'm using FDRP because that's so long-winded. There are 19 modules of study, so I hope that's not too daunting. But the reason that there are 19 modules is because of the requirements accreditation, we're required for you to learn the equivalent of the core units of the Graduate Diploma in Family Dispute Resolution, which is an Industry Skills Council qualification. So QUT Law faculty is actually an approved provider by the Attorney General's Department, and in covering all of the core units of this graduate diploma, there's actually quite a lot of content. Also, the content is increasing from next year, but we're actually going to be covering the new content with you people, just so that this course is set up for the future, and it's got a little bit more about property, financial, child support, and it's got more about, for example, child inclusive practice, that type of thing. But in terms of the supervision requirements, so, and actually we'll get onto that in a minute. So it's mostly online learning. You'll be working through the modules week by week, and then there's 6 in-person face-to-face days that we'll be doing here. I think for your group they're on Saturdays, and all of the dates and times are in your course outline, and they're also on that Blackboard site. Now if anyone has a question at any stage, please feel free to stop and interrupt me. Actually, I might just get that out of the way because I keep running into it.
Donna, did you say also that this is one of the electives for family lawyers, those doing family law at QUT, those studying family law?
That's a different subject. That's family law undergraduate law subject.
Okay.
But we also run sort of the equivalent of this course in our master's program.
Okay.
So it's actually 2 separate master's units, family mediation and mediation. Mediation covering the facilitative mediation model and how to mediate, and then the family mediation covering the requirements of the Attorney General's office.
Okay, so if someone was doing a Bachelor of Law, for example, would they be able to choose this as an elective as well?
No, if they're doing a Masters of Law.
Okay.
So if they're doing a Masters of Law, they can do family mediation, and also they run as short courses. So, you know, if someone's a lawyer or a social scientist, they can actually do the courses as 5-day short courses. Okay, we've got online modules to work through, and I'll show you them in a minute. At the end of that module, we have some way of testing your learning. It might, for example, be a quiz, and in the major modules, we'll also have a case scenario. So for example, it might be a little DVD, or it might be something to read through, which is a case scenario to be able to learn how to apply what you've learned to the sort of real life scenario. And that's really what the in-person sessions are about too, giving you the chance to come along. If when you're working through the modules, apart from going onto discussion board, you can also contact me at any time if you want to ring or email me. And I've brought along my card somewhere. Where did I put it? Somewhere. I'll find it in a minute. Also, if you've got any things that you're not understanding, bring it along to the in-person days, because at the beginning of the in-person days, we'll go through the content and we'll do a little bit of a summary at the beginning of, you know, what the key learnings were in that content. So if you're not understanding, don't worry about it. We can go through it in the in-person day, but also those days are also about sort of doing stuff and applying what you've done to case scenarios, so you're not redoing what you've already done. We have taught these subjects for about 3.5 years, but this is the first time we're doing it in more of a real online format. So we are designing your modules, module by module, in this online format. So too, if you have any feedback while you're going along, feel free to let me know, email or ring me. And if anything's not working, let us know too, because we do then test the modules to make sure they're working. But this is the first time we've used this particular program, and I hope it all goes well. So please bear with us, we're trying our very best. Okay, now we have got and this isn't the textbook for the course in that it's not a family mediation textbook, but I've got some copies of this to give you to today. And I guess the main things we want you to have this for at the beginning is there's a chapter on the family dispute resolution system, which goes through the different dispute resolution processes and where mediation fits in those processes, and also about the legal requirements in family law for family dispute resolution. And then it will also be relevant when we learn about parenting law and the financial law, child support and spousal maintenance. So we'll give you some of them at the end. But don't be daunted by that. You don't have to read the whole book. It's obviously not a law subject. You're not going to have to read lots of boring law stuff. Maybe just a tiny bit. And there are some other texts. You'll have access to our QUT library. Some of these are online. And also some of them are hard copy. So the only real Australian family mediation text is Fisher and Brandon, Mediating with Families. Then there's this text which is about general mediation, but it's quite good in terms of steps in the process and skills. And then these American texts, which probably are relevant in some ways, but they don't actually deal with the system here and the requirements here and that sort of stuff. So the main laws that we will be looking at are the Family Law Act and these Family Dispute Resolution regulations. And the regulations actually set out what you need for accreditation, and they also set out the ethical requirements for family mediators, so we'll be having a look at what they are. Oh, and on the Blackboard site we will put copies of those pieces of law. Okay, so I'll just go through the aims and the learning outcomes. And as we said, the main aim is for you to be accredited as family dispute resolution practitioners, and also that you learn how to conduct a facilitated mediation process. And I guess I might get a bit of an idea today about how much you already know about mediation too. Are people familiar with family mediation? How much sort of exposure have you had to a mediation process?
Possibly seen an intake.
Yeah, it's a main spiel we give people over and over on the phone, and we're constantly saying what it is, but yeah, I don't know how much you know about what happens during the mediation.
Okay. So some people have seen an intake?
Yeah, because we've got the telephone dispute resolution service on our floor.
Right.
It's been a great opportunity to be able to go and listen to an intake. And a few of our guys have also heard of mediation from time to time as well, so that's been really good.
Okay. Okay, well that's good that most people here don't know, haven't been in family mediation, because that's what all of this is about, so that's fine. Okay, so the sorts of things we're going to be covering in our modules is, firstly, we find it helpful that if you're learning about family mediation, that you understand how that fits in the family law system and how it's different to processes such as negotiation, conciliation, arbitration and going to court. Also the legal framework that family mediators operate in. So the legal requirements for family dispute resolution, for example, generally parents have to attend family mediation before filing in court, unless they fall within one of the exceptions. The basic law in parenting, that is children's cases, property, spousal maintenance and child support. Also we go into legal requirements for certificates. Family dispute resolution practitioners issue certificates. There are a range of certificates they can issue. One of the things they have to look at is whether people have made a genuine effort to negotiate, all that sort of stuff. How to conduct a mediation process. So at the end of the course, you'll be able to conduct a family mediation in a children's case and in a financial case. And we'll go through the steps of the process gradually, and you'll gradually build up your skills. looking at the legal and ethical obligations of FDRPs. There's actually sort of emerging law now about all of this, particularly about confidentiality and admissibility. So there are legal requirements about what can be confidential and what can't be in a mediation. We'll be learning about that and what some of the court cases have said. Communication skills, which I'm sure you already all have. So we might be preaching to the converted, but then using those particular skills in the mediation process, and particularly dealing with people in conflict that are in the same room, and how to deal with that, which is probably one of the most challenging things. And I guess you people do a lot of work on the telephone as well here, and you people is Relationships Australia. In the legal aid conferences, we do a lot of the conferences by telephone link up too, so we'll also be looking at the particular challenges there. We'll be looking at family violence theory, how to support victims of violence and other vulnerable people. And I guess I should also say there, intake and screening, which I probably don't have there and I should have added to it, assessing whether mediation is appropriate, and if it is, how it should be set up for people like that. And also, I guess, critically analysing aspects of the system, sort of looking at it also with a bit of a critical eye, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of family mediation and all that sort of thing as well. So are there any questions about what you're going to be learning? Has anyone got any pressing things that they'd like to learn about family mediation or family law in children's cases, financial cases? Are there any burning issues that you've always wanted to know about, or queries that you get where people are always asking you the same thing? No?
Don't know what they don't know yet.
Okay, so our teaching approach is we hope to provide a nurturing and supportive environment in which you can flourish as family mediators. So remember, you know, in this sort of process when you actually start doing the mediations, if you've never mediated before, everyone usually starts at a very basic level, and then it's a matter of gradually building up your skills, and it's sort of like learning to drive, in that at the beginning it will seem, you know, very difficult, and gradually it'll get a little bit easier, although I sort of find as a family mediator you can constantly be doing things better, and you constantly, after you do a mediation, can reflect and think about what you could have done, what you did well, what you could do better. So it's also sort of knowledge and skills that you're always continually developing. I guess that's what I like about it, and also sometimes find challenging and frustrating, because people are people and they're quite unpredictable too. The clients can provide challenges. So lots of opportunities for discussion, lots of interactive activities. You will need to participate in negotiation and mediation role plays. Have people role played before? And so I know some people love it, some people hate it. Some of us that have been family lawyers tend to love it and play out our worst clients. For some reason, family lawyers often seem to love role play, but some of our students in our courses at QUT role play far too hard. So we have to sort of role play to an extent that we don't make it too difficult for our mediators. Now, in our assessment, and because we're developing our modules, at the moment we're thinking, and we can talk to you people about whether you think this is going to be doable for people. So we will have some online quizzes. Now, I was thinking we'd have a certain number of quizzes accessible, and then I've put up there completion of all online quizzes. We can think about that, because what we'll have, nearly every module will have a quiz, and the idea of the quiz is that you get feedback on your learning. Now, we could just take all the whatever results you get on that at the end, or we could just have a couple of quizzes that we assess. So we can maybe talk to you people about that, negotiate our assessment. Also reflective journals. Now reflective journals might sound scary, but they're not actually scary because all you're really doing is you're learning theory and skills, and then you apply them in your face-to-face learning, and it's just about reflecting on that. So how you went with applying your knowledge and skills, what you found challenging, what you found you were good at, what you found you need to work on, that type of thing, and you will get specific questions to answer, so it won't just be a reflect on Saturday, it'll be some specific questions to reflect on, which makes it a lot easier. So in terms of accreditation, it's pass-fail, but if you'd like to get your actual results in terms of what percentage you achieve, would that be something that you would like to get?
Yeah.
Yeah, could have hated you.
And actually, do we have times that I could quickly get people to introduce themselves just to give me?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a couple missing today because of childcare issues and things like that. But,
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and just giving me your background in terms of what you've studied, and are you all in the same position being you're all the call centre people?
They are, but we've got a couple of practice coordinators in this group as well, but everybody works on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we might start.
You're going to be the exception.
Is it for
aren't
me?
you?
I work as Senior Case Coordinator for the Royal Commission Support Service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to be a practice coordinator, though, a couple of years ago. My background's in human services and counselling and social work. That's me, and I'm Sheree.
I'm Sadia. I'm actually on maternity leave at the moment, so.
Oh, okay. You're good.
Yeah, but I'm on the phones. I'm working as a family relationship advisor with Brow. And my background, I studied psychology and exercise science, and I'm using psychology and counseling.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
My name's Michelle, I'm one of the practice coordinators, and my background is I've done my psychology bachelor and honours, and just face-to-face psychology counselling before joining the family relationship advice line.
Excellent.
My name is Tegan, I'm a practice coordinator as well, and my background is in psychology too.
I'm Tria, and I'm actually also an exception. I'm in administration with the Telephone Dispute Resolution Service, so I'm pretty familiar with the process, the mediation process. I studied Bachelor of Psychological Science, and I worked at a women's refuge for a while, and yeah, now I'm in administration with our service.
Okay.
I'm Caitlin, and I'm a family relationship advisor like these guys, or most of these guys. And I studied psychology, but now I'm studying social work, and I have worked as a counsellor, a telephone counsellor for a while.
Oh, okay.
And she's about to start her placement for her masters as well, aren't you?
I
Sure.
am, yeah, so I'm going to be really busy throughout next
What's a Masters of
social work.
Social Work? Oh, excellent.
So we've got a couple of them trying to do this and their masters.
Oh, okay.
I'm Tracy, I'm also a family relationship advisor as these guys. My background is human services.
Okay. Oh, that's good to get an idea of your backgrounds too, because that helps us when we're designing everything. Okay. Oh, and I should say, with the face-to-face days, it would be really good if you can attend all of those. Although I know sometimes, if you get sick or something like that, because you're in the first group, what I was thinking is we've got 2 more groups going through, and if anyone definitely can't attend a particular day, you could always do group 2 or group 3, but I guess generally it would be good if we could keep groups together and that you can attend your group 1 days unless, it's just not possible. But then for group 3 people, we don't have that option.
It's vital that they attend.
Okay, so once you complete the course, if you complete the course successfully, you will have covered what we call the academic requirements for accreditation. And then you need to complete the supervised practice, which I understand RA are going to assist you with, so that's great because that's something that for people outside of these sorts of organisations can be quite difficult to manage. So at the moment, that requirement is 10 hours of supervised practice. It will be going up from the 1st of July next year to 50 hours of supervised practice. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, because if you are having any difficulties keeping up with the course, just let us know or let your people know, because you know, if you're keen to finish, I'm sure we can work things out so that you can finish in time to get everything done before this becomes an issue, because it just is a lot more onerous then.
Sorry, is that 10 hours of client contact or just a?
Well, what supervised practice actually is acting as a family mediator. Now, in the actual information, it says at the beginning you can co-mediate. So you can co-mediate with someone, so for your first mediation, and I'm not sure what you guys do here, but that's the gist of what we've tried to work out. Co-mediate, and then, and it just depends on people's confidence and levels of ability and everything. Sometimes people can co-mediate once, and then the next time they might co-mediate, but the first time the experienced mediator will do a lot of the stuff. The second time, maybe you might do a lot of the stuff, depending on how you're feeling, depending on what the clients are like, what the issues are like. Sometimes, you know, it can be more complicated. The mediation can be quite complicated, and in that sort of case, the more experienced mediator might take a bigger role. Now, there's all sorts of different accreditation requirements, but basically, if you've got an undergraduate degree in social science or law, it's then sufficient for you to do the equivalent of the core units of the graduate diploma in dispute resolution. Now, in the actual regulations, it talks about law, social work, psychology. We have talked to the Attorney General's office, and I think, did I check this with you, Gay, at some stage that they do accept degrees like human services?
I haven't checked that with them, but their attitude was, I think it was provided it was in the field, so I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they're a bit frustrating in that they won't give us a list, or in the past, they wouldn't give me a list, because I have people ringing up saying I'm wanting to do these courses and I want to know if my qualification is going to be accepted. Because the only difference is, if they don't accept your qualification, is that you have to become nationally accredited. And national accreditation is just another 2-day course. So we actually offer that 2-day course, and if anyone does decide you want to become nationally accredited, you've got, as long as you do that 2 days course within 2 years of doing all of this training, you can also be nationally accredited. So that's a different accreditation system, and it's for general mediation.
So what we've agreed with QUT is that we won't be asking you to do that, because that was additional. But as Donna says, if that's something you want to do in your own time, then that's fine. But you will come out of this, and you're back to explain this, but you will all come out with the potential to be accredited, but you won't necessarily have a diploma as such. Yep.
Yes, that's true. So these are the core units at the moment that we'll be covering. And actually, the new requirements change a couple of these units, and I didn't put them all up here, but we will be covering the new requirements as well as this. And that's why it's 19 modules, unfortunately, because they've added. So you'll see it's operate in a family law environment, facilitate dispute resolution, implement dispute resolution strategies in an impartial manner, adhere to ethical standards, support vulnerable people, and respond to domestic and family violence. Now, once you finish your course and then you do your supervised practice, you come back to us and we can give you your certificate. So we're only allowed to give you your certificate after you've done your supervised practice requirements. And then you apply to the Commonwealth Attorney General's Department for your accreditation. There are some other requirements that they have, that you don't have any dreadful criminal history, particularly in relation to children or physical violence, anything like that. Now the ability to work with children and the blue card, my understanding, and you guys might correct me if I'm wrong, but what they've told us is you only need that if you're actually going to be working in processes where children are involved. So for example, I don't have a blue card at the moment because originally they said we all had to have them, but then they said we only had to have them if we're actually facilitating processes with children, which I don't do, so I don't actually need it. You need a complaints mechanism and you need professional indemnity insurance. So if you're actually working in an organisation, so if you ended up and you're working here, I would think you would have these.
Yes, and everyone here has the police check and the blue card already.
Oh, okay, well that's great. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. That's just what I just said. And this just goes through the actual accreditation criteria that if for any reason you had any of these issues, you wouldn't be able to be accredited. And I'm sure they're not a problem. So the National Mediation Accreditation is a separate type of accreditation. We're not covering that in this course. It's another 2-day course which you can elect to do if you want to do after you've finished all of this, but I just wanted to make that clear. And the reason it's not covered is that it's just got more onerous requirements about how many role plays you participate in, and that you have to do a certain amount of practical training. So we will be going through all the steps in the mediation process, and you will be doing a couple of days where you do role plays as mediators, but just not enough days to comply with all of that. Okay, so questions. So I guess I just wanted to ask each of you, and do I have time to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. If there was just one thing you were thinking you'd like to learn from the course, or you can tell me more than one thing, but I just wanted to give a bit of an idea from you of other particular things when you were, say you ended up expressing interest in the course that you were thinking that you would like to learn. So I will start, I'll just make you all answer this question. Actually, I need to get something to write on. Do you have a pen, which I might
Yeah, do you want to put it in?
I would love a pen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start up here because you people look like you're really organised and ready.
I guess skills around helping parties to be able to focus on what they're there for, rather than getting the conflict and all the other things that they'll bring to mediation.
Okay, so skills, and do you mean skills in dealing with conflict and then getting them to focus on the issues
Yeah.
rather than the conflict with each other?
Perfect. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
I think practically what I need is some good skills for kind of interrupting and containing people, because that's not something that I've ever had to do a lot of, and I'm still working on building that now. So you're looking at me like that's
Do you mean if they are in conflict, not letting them go on and on and on,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
need to
yeah.
at some times intervene and
yeah, so that they can't kind of squash the other person, you know.
so is that about power imbalances too? If one person's more assertive,
Yeah, totally.
dealing with that and trying to make it a more sort of level playing field so that they both get a chance to talk?
Definitely.
Okay. Yep.
I'm probably interested in when there's been a history of domestic violence, how the co-parenting works,
Right.
and whether mediation is can be successful there.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good question actually about, because say in the legal aid conferences there's a lot of very high conflict. So here, it is a good question about how co-parenting works, particularly when people don't speak to each other at all. Yeah, do you get people here at that level of conflict?
Very much.
Yes.
I mean, TDRS deals with clients that have basically tried everything else. So
Oh, right.
yeah, so that they can't stand the sight of each other. That's why they use a telephone service.
Oh,
Or
okay.
they've physically moved away from each other, stayed away from each other because they like each other so much, so that you've got that. So
Oh,
There's an
that's
order in place that
interesting.
prohibits them from having any sort of contact with each other except for the purpose of having a meeting.
Yes.
So we see that the clients must absorb from
Oh,
it.
okay.
And these advisors also deal with a lot of clients that are very angry.
Oh, so you're in your actual jobs you're dealing with?
Yeah, so they're de-escalating a lot of the time.
Oh, okay. So what might they be angry about when they call you people?
Not being allowed to see their children,
Oh, right.
the whole process taking so long.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, mediation is fantastic, and I think all of the family law and the child focus and everything that's come into place has been a lot better, but it's still a long process, and that can really be frustrating for a lot of parents still.
Well, that's good. That's really interesting. Yeah, well, actually, when I'm doing the legal aid conferences, we have a lot of very high conflict, but we have lawyers in our process. And one of the most frustrating aspects of the process is that all the lawyers want to be in a shuttle process. So, and if you ask them why they want to be in a shuttle, it's not always because there's violence issues, it's because they think people would get upset with each other when they're in the same room. So it's not always because of valid reasons, they just feel more comfortable. Because you know when you go up to court, you're often in a shuttle because you'll go to the court and they'll just say, go away, sort it out, and then you'll be out in the little conference rooms and the lawyers will shuttle back and forth and the clients are in the room separated. So they're very comfortable with that. So what I've been trying to do recently is sort of talk to people about whether there's reasons for being in a shuttle and whether they should be in the same room even at the outset. And I know that's not always possible, and say when you're on the telephone too, they might be listening to each other, are they? But they're just not seeing each other.
Yeah.
But what we'll be learning about the process is there's a lot of power in the listening, and they don't always listen, do they? But there can be a lot of power in actually hearing what the other person has to say, and it's really lost in that shuttle process. Then in the telephone process, you might still get that they can hear each other, but they can't see each other. So you're not cutting out that stage. But what a lot of the lawyers, and I'm not defaming lawyers because some of them these days are really good and it can be a really helpful process having the lawyers there. But if they don't understand the process, they don't understand what it's all about, and you end up just shuttling bad messages as a mediator back and forth, because it's a lot easier too for people to be really hardline with what they're going to offer when they can't even see or have to look at the other person, and they just say, you know, you'll end up going back and forth going, oh, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings. But so that's the interesting part about the process, I think too, that what the process is designed to do, and then in practice what you can actually get people to do and what they feel comfortable with. And if there's been really ongoing high conflict for a very long time. Also about time frames, and actually what sort of time frame do you have for your telephone?
It's part of the challenge. I mean, it's generally 6 weeks before first intake. If you're lucky, another 6 weeks for the second intake, and then how long to a mediation?
They're pretty good at the moment, say like about a month.
Yeah.
Is that right, Petria?
Can be even less if they're flexible, like we're booking some next week, so yeah.
I mean, it's faster than the court system, but they don't necessarily understand that. But it's still probably a 3-month process.
And then when they actually have their mediation, how many hours do you have?
2 hours.
2-hour sessions, but can you have more than one?
We can.
Oh, okay.
But then they sort of go back in the queue to get booked again. It's not necessarily.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I mean the practitioners will have some flexibility to look at their own calendars, but it might just be that everybody's booked up, and it might be another 6 weeks before they're able to have their second session.
Oh, okay. So you've got frustrations in that.
So just so you understand what happens if the clients want to use the telephone dispute resolution service, they can't ring it directly. They have to ring the FRAL, and the FRAL assess whether they're likely to be suitable to begin with, and then they refer them through to TDRS. So these guys are the first point of contact for people wanting mediation as well, so they spend a lot of their time explaining mediation, which is why we really like them to have a much deeper understanding of what goes
Oh,
on.
good.
Sometimes the first point of contact for people that don't want mediation as
Yeah,
well.
that's right. More often than not, in fact. Yeah.
They just want to go straight to court.
So they just want the certificate.
They just want to go to court.
And that's one of the frustrations with compulsory mediation. On the one hand, you know, with the family law system now, generally you have to attend mediation before filing a children's case in court. So in some ways that's good in that it can get more people to try and discuss things before they go to court, but in some ways it's bad because some people are trying to come here, or to people like me, because they just want the certificate. And that can be quite frustrating because they're not sort of mentally engaged in wanting to work things out. They're just wanting to jump the hurdle.
Go to court because they think that the judge is going to.
Yes, and some people have this unrealistic idea that the judge is this all-seeing, all-knowing, godlike being.
It's going to be on their side.
Which what actually happens often when you go to court is that there's just endless frustrations. The court puts you through all sorts of dispute resolution processes, particularly for children's cases, and also we've got the Family Court of Australia. They started the Federal Circuit Court of Australia to try and make it a quick, cheap, fast process. The Federal Circuit Court is now totally backed up, and it's at least a year to a final hearing, and I think it's longer. So, and often when you go to court, you'll just get thrown out anyway, and the judge will say, I don't have time, go and work it out, and they spend all this money on court documents and lawyers and barristers and stuff, and they end up having to go and work it out anyway. So that's the sort of thing that I guess they need to be aware of. But even if you go through all of that with some people, they're still wanting, they'll still come back and say, but I need the judge to make a decision, and so I guess that's some of the stuff we will be looking at in this course too, is so that you'll get a deeper understanding of the process. Also, how the facilitated mediation model compares to other sorts of models. Lawyers tend to use what I call a shuttle negotiation, where they do separate people and they just shuttle between them. And then there are other sort of more, there's like transformative mediation, where you're trying to transform, say when we're dealing with ongoing conflict, how to change the dynamics in the relationship between people so that in the future they can work together. Now, in a limited time process, you may not even get up to that. Say for a legal aid mediation, it's 4 hours. You often don't even get up to anything about changing future dynamics between people, because in the 4 hours, you just can't get anywhere near that, or you might talk to people but they don't really take it on board because they probably need to come back and have counselling and all sorts of things, which often they're not prepared to do. But the other things we'll be doing is things like when we look at family violence, Jenny will be talking about the dynamics of violence, which I think you've probably already got some knowledge of, and also be talking about the legal aspects of violence, like for example, what people need to show to get protection orders, what sort of provisions are in their orders, how we take that into account when you're doing your intake and screening, all that sort of thing. Now, sorry, and as we're working our way through, I've got totally diverted. Who were we up to? I was just thinking I should stop talking and let you talk.
You're right, no, that's okay. Definitely with Katrina in terms of how it works with family violence, especially because when the guys are on the phone, a lot of calls are coming through to as well as family violence. Also wanting to know more about the legal aid conferencing as well, because we do speak to people who have been through that process too. And I know it sounds a little bit weird, but everything that I've ever done has been working with one person. So the idea of working with two people, how that works.
Okay. Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something very similar about the whole couple dynamics, because whether face-to-face or on the phone, we're very used to working with one person, so it'd be interesting to learn that whole de-escalation, communication, conflict resolution, all that sort of thing, but with a couple, rather than just that de-escalate with one person, doing that when we've got two people in conflict, and de-escalating
suspect the challenge for everyone here is because they've been so used to just listening to one party's story. I think the challenge will be to one story and wow, the other one's really different, and what you do with that too.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about that's probably the most interesting part of family law, isn't it? Like when you're a family lawyer and you've only heard your client's story, and in the olden days we didn't do much dispute resolution. You know, it was all about filing an application, and then you'd get all the material from the other people, their affidavits, and you'd be reading them thinking, is this the same? This is totally different.
Tell me that.
And actually it's a bit like that in mediation, isn't it? Because I think just recently I had a mediation where there were totally different stories. They were just so different about, they were both telling me, you know, I listened to, say, the mother and thought, oh, the father's terrible. And then I listened to the father, oh, the mother sounds dreadful. They're both saying that each other takes drugs and they're not doing the right thing and they're not supervising properly and they don't want the other one to have children, and you just wonder where in the middle, you know, as a mediator, you don't actually know what the truth is, and how do you deal with all the allegations that are going on and people wanting drug, and one person wants a drug test and the other person says, well then I want a drug test, he wants a drug test, I want him, and all that sort of stuff. So you get that same thing in mediation, whereas a mediator, if you've got a couple of hours with people, you don't ever really get to the bottom of everything. The main focus for this sort of stuff is on children, and how do you focus people on children and what's a realistic outcome for them. Okay. Oh, Michelle, we just did you, didn't we? Sorry.
I want to learn more about the legal side of things because I don't have a legal background, so I want to know more about when it's okay to give a certificate, all the different certificates that they've got, when it's okay to mediate in that, especially when there is family violence and that power control.
Yes.
How to deal with that when you've got one person controlling another person in the same room or on the same line, and that would be interesting.
Yes. Okay, so more about the legal aspects and about the certificates. And that is a bit of a fraud issue, the certificates. I don't know if you people have problems, but you know, as as private mediators, there's a real issue with if one person approaches you and then the other person doesn't want to use you or your service. Because we also have a QUT mediation service, and we've had a lot of problems with that too. You know, like mother approaches QUT and then they approach father, and father says, I don't want to use QUT, I want to use, I don't know, private mediator, for example. Private mediator is going to charge thousands of dollars. Oh, sorry.
That's a power imbalance in itself.
So can, in that instance, would QUT give a certificate because he's declined to participate, or?
Well, we've been trying to work that out because
we tend to. And
we do.
Say we invite the other party. If they want to use another service, then that's their right.
Yes.
But they've declined our service. So
as long as we've complied with the requirements.
Oh, and that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
We
And I
do.
guess how we get around that is we tell them that, you know, if one person has engaged our service and the other party doesn't wish to do it, or they've issued them a cert, but then, you know, the other party can also get a cert from their service saying that our client has refused their services. So, and then we just try to reality test them going, well, if both of you end up with that cert and you both end up in court, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that the judge would likely to issue you back to mediation? So in which case we have that conversation with them just so that they can pick a service and go with it. That's our way
And I
around
know we
it.
have also done it before, like if party B says, I'm going through this service, I prefer to use this service because it's child inclusive or something, then we would go to party A with their permission and say, party B is initiated through this service, would you be willing to go there? And then it might go through that other service instead, but if it doesn't, then we'd issue a certificate because if they don't.
Oh, because you don't have a child inclusive process?
not here, no, but we can always refer to other services that have it. So
Yeah.
often if they present with children around who are older, that would be a reason why we might say we're not the right service, because really the children's voice has to be heard.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, well, I sometimes find it becomes a negotiation about which service, because people then lock horns and they, you know, it's my service, it's your service.
Well, and also the one that initiates tends to feel they've got an advantage because they started the process when in fact they haven't. But that's always a challenge too. You know, I started this and now you won't tell me what's happening and sort of stuff. So it's,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks, Nadia.
Yeah, I think I know very little about property settlement, so that would be something I'd have to look at.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to maybe look at communication in terms of mediation a bit more, not using a therapeutic framework. I think that would be a big shift for me.
Yes.
Going from counselling. And then, yeah, similar to everyone else around domestic violence.
Yes.
that's a really good point though, because that's what we
Yeah.
look for is you being able to change hats.
Yeah, think quite differently, I imagine, so
Yes.
that will be interesting.
Yeah, well, I guess we've been training, because we're in the law school, we often get a lot of lawyers, but we have had a smaller proportion in each group of social science people, and they both have challenges with different things. Because lawyers are good at working out issues and negotiating, but some of them are really directive, so they want to tell people what to do. And then social scientists often, particularly with the negotiating, they haven't had experience with facilitating negotiations, but they're not directive, but sometimes they're not directive enough in terms of the process because they're used to sitting back and letting the client, you know, more control the session type thing. So yeah, it's been really interesting teaching the different backgrounds of people. You've both got your strengths and also personality too plays a large part. And then some of the, there's a small proportion of the lawyers that we can't sort of retrain to not tell people what to do. Which is quite funny. Okay, well, is there any more questions from you people? Because I guess it's good to get a bit of an idea of backgrounds and also what you're interested in doing, and particularly too in terms, I know you said you need to know more about property law. Are there any areas of the law that you have particular wanting to know more about? Because that's something we will be covering as well.
Financial.
Financial.
Yeah.
Yep. And the family law has become very complicated. It started out as quite simple, I think, years ago, and then has become more and more complicated.
There seem to be more provisions all the time in the Act too. I was looking the other day and there's suddenly a whole lot more there that weren't there a few years back.
Yeah, well, there used to be a couple of sections, and now that there's also the DAs and the DACs, and it becomes, you know, when you're lecturing, you used to be able to just stand up and just say the sections quite easily, whereas now you're often looking because you can't remember off the top of your head if it's 65 DAC or 65, because they've made so many amendments. There's also constant amendments happening in family law, like we had the huge amendments in 2006 to the Family Law Act. The whole Domestic Violence Act changed in 2012. Now there have been further amendments to the Domestic Violence Act quite recently, so it is certainly an area that's continually changing. But I guess what we will be looking at is the basics, say with the children, the basic terminology, also how the court deals with cases, so looking at the sections of the Family Law Act that are relevant, how the court deals with the sections, because a lot of the outside community think that they've got rights to half-time, and that's not actually what the law says, but it does really impact on mediation. Like the minute they started talking about the amendments to that Family Law Act, before it was about 2005, I was at Legal Aid and people were already coming in with the men saying, I want half-time, I've read in the Courier Mail that the law is changing and I'll get half-time. And that's really changed the whole dynamic of mediation. I think it's really changed the negotiating, sort of the way you're negotiating in terms of what people come in with their initial positions. So that does become quite problematic because some people are quite focused on their rights now, even though it's supposed to be about children. It's about rights to time and what I do with my time, and we've even had lawyers telling us that you know, if people have got week on, week off arrangements, that the father's telling the mother she can't do tuck shop on their week, and or she can't do reading at the school. I've had a lawyer tell me that one of the children forgot her togs for the swimming carnival and left them at Dad's place, and then Dad said, it's my week. She's not having the togs in my week, so she couldn't go in the swimming carnival. And so that's when we talk about a critical analysis. As FDRPs, we also look at, you know, critiquing things and what do these things really mean. And even if you're in a mediation, it's not like you're in court and the law doesn't define decision making between parents, but often it creates a mindset for them about what they think they're entitled to, and there are all sorts of problems. So I think those changes in the law have been positive in some ways and not so positive in other ways, particularly in terms of my rights to time.
I think that's one of the challenges that we all find in TDRS is that it's actually the clients coming in with that perception for some reason, thinking that equal shared parental responsibility is the same as equal shared parenting or equal shared time, or
that's exactly right.
And it's actually having to manage that as an FDRP, having to manage that and manage those expectations as part of the process before you've even started having the conversation about anything else that they want to talk about. And often the children are really young and they're wanting half time, which is really not going to work.
Yes.
And they live it to stay.
Yes. But it's okay because, you know, they can just get on the plane and just do month on, month off.
Yeah, well, I guess in your telephone service, you probably, when we have mediation at Legal Aid, often they just link up people that are in Brisbane, but they also link up people that, you know, where, say, they're separated and for some reason mum or dad has decided to move 9 hours away to some remote place.
Exactly what
They've got no money, they don't drive because they've lost their licence, drink driving or speeding, and then you've got some logistical arrangement. So yeah, those are, you know, trying to get, if you've got very young children and then say maybe mum or dad don't work and they're on Centrelink benefits, but they're saying, how can I possibly go all that way to see the children? They'll have to come to see me.
And we do international ones as well. The requirement is just one party needs to be here in Australia. So we probably do, 50 or 60 each year that involve other countries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And almost every of our case has at least one person who's on Centrelink, so low income users.
Yep. And we use interpreters a lot too.
Oh, okay.
We had one the other day that wanted to go through and you needed an interpreter. Caitlin, do you remember that?
Yeah.
You needed an interpreter and then the party view was deaf. So
I didn't find out, so I was right about to transfer him across.
That's another service again. And just for your information, fundamentally we work with parents, so there need to be children involved for our services, but also we'll do property if it directly relates to children's issues. So we won't do property in isolation. But everyone needs to know about property. It's just that the majority of the cases are about children. But if everything revolves around who's going to hold on to the family home, then we might do the property as part of the children's stuff.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's similar to Legal Aid.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Although their funding, they don't have a lot of funding now.
They have virtually no funding.
Yeah, which is hard too, because now even if you need another hour to work things out, they won't give you another hour. You know, I was in one recently where we had, and actually that's what I was going to ask you too, would you ever have cases where there are independent children's lawyers involved?
Not usually, no.
No.
We would deem it they're probably not appropriate for our service if that's the case, because if there are ICLs, then likely there's already a matter on foot in front of the court.
Yeah.
So they're probably better using that service that allows them to have legally assisted mediation. So we don't allow lawyers as part of our process as
Yep.
a general matter of course.
Okay. because independent children's lawyers are appointed by the court in some cases, you know, particularly where there are serious allegations of abuse or sort of nasty type issues, and I guess there are issues with how you let them participate in mediation and all that sort of thing. So I was just interested in that.
And obviously we have the child protection issue, so if there's a live case then we usually withdraw, but we've got to find out whether there's an open case or not, and that's always a challenge. And now, I think everyone here's visited the court, haven't they? Yeah, so we try to get everyone to go to the family court and see what it's actually like.
All right.
So most of them will have done that, at least
Good.
once. Yeah.
Actually, last time I went to the family court, was it earlier this year? And when I used to go years ago, I was just shocked at how many clients there were. You know, from when I went many years ago to if you go now, there are just people everywhere, people and lawyers everywhere, and it unfortunately is a booming business.
There's a lot of shuttle mediation going on in the waiting room generally.
Yes, yes, that's right. You know, when you talk to lawyers, there's terrible delays in courts now, to the extent that people are writing, you know, lawyers are trying to lobby politicians because they're saying they're not enough, because the federal, and we all look in the first module at the different courts and what they do, but the Federal Circuit Court deals with most family law cases now, and it was set up to try and, you know, get rid of backlogs and deal efficiently, and it's just ended up with the same problems in that it's got backlogs, and I think it's a more than a year, because they've tried to introduce a pro bono mediation service, Family Law Practitioners Association, at callovers, but only some of the judges will participate in it. But when you actually go to the callovers and hear, the judge will be telling people when their case will actually be set down for a final hearing, and it's probably at least a year. So, you know, I guess in that time, the kids have to live in whatever arrangement the parents can agree to in the interim anyway.
I think at the moment they're setting trial dates for March next year.
Yes.
Last I heard.
All right. Now, what I meant to do too is just go back onto that Blackboard site and show you too with our online modules. Now, we haven't got this open to you yet because we're still trying to fix it up, but I might be very daring and go in and hope that something's working so that I can just show you how they're going to operate.
These are going to be hot off the press, are they, Donna, each time?
Hot off the press. So in terms of the online modules, it will be, I don't know how to make that a little bit smaller.
Press control and roll down.
Control and what?
And then on the mouse you scroll up.
So I can get that in the one screen.
Am I making it
Yeah.
No, you make it smaller. That's what I got.
Is that right?
Yep, that's perfect. So when you go into the modules, you'll sort of be working from top down. So you'll start with the top, if there is a top, and then just going across the screen. So when you click on that one, and actually, welcome to module 1, and you'll have to look at my dreadful face, and then you will click over and it'll go back into that title, and then you'll go back. They didn't tell me when I signed up for this that I have to be on screen. And then in this one, for example, you start up here. And then you click to go forward or to go back.
How many hours per module, Donna? Is it like 8 hours a module? Or?
In the actual listening to stuff.
No, like the, you know, kind of give it like a number of hours per week.
think it would be anywhere near 8 hours.
That's what we've got to work out, to be honest, we're on the guinea pigs as a group, because we're still working out what it's going to be.
Oh, I better stop myself.
And we've been discussing this in the sense that, and I guess that's what Donna means about the quizzes, we've got to work out how much time, whether we need to give you time during the day, whether you can do this after hours, how it's going to work. So we'll be looking for your feedback in terms of whether you can keep up with what's happening, or everyone's different, but nevertheless, it's
Yes, so we are designing it module by module, so if you think you've got any feedback or if anything doesn't work in the particular module, just email me or ring me, because we'll be testing them, and then hopefully we'll pick up any glitches in the tests. One might be, you probably will be very sick of me by the end of this.
And other modules do you
It's
get?
down the bottom there.
Ah! Oh, sorry.
that's fixed it.
And the actual content is in that schedule, as we said at the beginning, so you can have a look at that and you'll see all the different modules that we'll be doing. If at any stage too that you don't think we've covered something in your online learning module, just let us know, because we might be able to cover that in the in-person day.
Sorry, and with the modules, do they come with like notes like this, or is it all just purely online?
It's all online.
Okay.
Yeah, so there will be, what you just saw is the way it's designed. It's all designed online. You can take your own notes. We have got, for the very first module, I brought along some of these textbooks, because we did want, and at the moment we've got one between two, but we did want you just to read this chapter 4, the Family Law Dispute Resolution System.
For the first module, is that?
Yes.
And now this will be available at all hours of day or night, like once you've got it up and running.
Yes.
Because a few of our guys literally work overnight, so they're going to have the advantage. They'll just be able to do it overnight, probably.
The one thing I should check to you is we do have IT help desk. So if at any problem you have, if any time you have a problem, which hopefully you won't, you can ring our IT help desk. I'll just have to check, and it will be on the website what their hours are, because they won't sort of be available at 2 a.m. But during the week and on weekends, they're available during certain hours, probably longer than during the week than on the weekends.
And this chapter won't be uploaded to Blackboard.
No, this one you've just got a hard copy.
I'll just breach copyright.
And I think Joanna said we'll buy a few of these to have them over there as in the library for you as well.
Yeah, and one thing,
People just signing them out and signing them back in or something.
yes, we're only allowed to put up one chapter of a text on our Blackboard site, so that's why we will be putting some up on the Blackboard site, but we can't put, say if we want to use, I don't know, 5 chapters of this, we can't put 5 chapters up, so that is a bit frustrating. Okay, well, any other questions? That probably deals with what I wanted to and I will talk to the learning designer about those quizzes.
Yeah, because I was going to say our preference probably would be that they would need to have completed the relevant quizzes for that first face-to-face day, so that they're ready to go on that face-to-face day, because I think otherwise they're going to be disadvantaged. I mean, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, I guess that's certainly the idea.
Yeah.
What's our first?
First face-to-face day,
7th of June.
11th of June. So,
Because it'll just be much harder for everybody if they haven't got that under their belt before that day.
yes.
So what I'll be doing is I'll actually be emailing you guys to chase everyone up the week before the first
Alright.
in-person training to get you all to finish your online modules before then. And I'll probably do that for all the groups and all the sessions. So,
And as I say, it's not because we're being school teachers, but we just want to make sure that you're not drowning. Okay?
and that you get the most out of the in-person training days as well, because I suspect that if you're just coming in fresh without any knowledge, probably won't know what's happening or what Donna's talking about. So.
Yeah, so for the first in-person training, we'll be doing family dispute resolution system. So we'll be looking at dispute resolution processes, where mediation fits in, but we won't be looking in depth at the mediation model until later. Then we go into children's law, so all the terminology, how the courts approach children's law, and we'll probably do a case scenario based on that. And also conflict and power, so that's about causes of conflict, power imbalances, sorts of power imbalances that come up, because this then is getting ready to do a bit later intake and screening. After that in-person day, we then go on to the violence, the law about domestic violence and the dynamics of violence. So all of that at the beginning is introducing you to dispute resolution, parenting law, and then different modules to get you ready to do intake and screening. Okay, well I look forward to teaching you. Hopefully I will not be coughing in the future. I have ongoing voice problems at the moment, and I had to do, because we had all the audio problems, we had to then, I sort of spent last weekend taping a whole lot of audio, and then none of that was very good quality, and then we had to do another 2-hour session taping audio, and you know, this won't happen in the future because we'll know that the headset I was using didn't give good quality, so we won't be doing that again. But it's just sort of the getting it set up at the beginning, and then I think it'll be a bit earlier. It'll be a bit easier in the future, and I'll let you know too when that module will be available to work on. So hopefully by Tuesday.
Okay. And Gay has kindly provided morning tea as well, so
Because we thought we'd be asking you more questions anyway. So.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Patricia has a
No,
list.
that'll be handy. Well, it makes it a lot easier for me now, having met everyone and had a chance to talk to you, because I just like having people in my mind when I'm designing. So it makes the whole process a lot easier, and also to get some more information about the sorts of cases you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone. Look forward to working with you, and please stay in touch if you're having any problems. Don't ever feel that I always say no question is too silly. I'm always the person that sits in the class and I don't want to ask questions because I think everyone will know the answer to that. But you know, remember to, if you post something on discussion forum or if you email or ring me, no questions too silly, or you know, if you don't have time, just bring it along to keep a note. If you don't have time to do all of that, bring it along to the in-person day, and we'll have some time for just discussion and working out all those issues.
Do you need your name?
Oh, yeah.
That?
Oh, I was going to keep your name tags and use them for each session. I'm not quite sure why they're upside down name tags.
With the books, are you just going to keep them across?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so I
keep
can
them
come
open.
in whenever and...
If you can, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, as you said, Michelle, we'll just run a book or something on who's got it where and so on.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll buy some set as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you live far away from it?
So which it's a
No, no,
it's a whole chapter you want
I
to
don't
do.
live far at all.
Probably
Yes.
always scan it and so you don't have to
Oh,
do
I don't mind coming in. It's a good drive.
Okay.
It's an excuse to get out of the house as well.
Bring the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
No, usually, but
Yeah,
just
I think I
makes
will bring them.
very science to
Oh, is it? Oh, it's gone so...
Because when we were doing the studies, always wanted to do it, and I thought, well, turned out it shouldn't be a barrier. Should be fine.
No, that's right.
I actually do, yeah. I'm going to some way the last minute next week off. I was going to mention that for you.